My name is Simone Sechster, and I was born in 1942 in Paris, France. And that was during the height of the war. My sister was born in 1940, just when the Germans had invaded Paris. And we lived in Paris in a big townhome. My father was a dentist, and he had been born in Romania. And he moved to France to attend university, where he underwent his dental studies. My mother was a private secretary at Air France, and she was in the beginning of aviation. She saw Lindbergh land in Paris, and she worked for one of the directors there, and they sent her to England to become a bilingual secretary. So she learned English there. And they had to hide out from before, when they started having to wear Jewish stars. And my parents decided they were going to hide out. So they moved into a small little maid's room. Here they had been in this like 6-room big town home. And the maid's room, and where 4 people lived in a small little room. And of course they were short of food. My father could not practice his profession because he was Jewish. And so in 1943...
Back up who were the neighbors? I mean, did the neighbors know that a Jewish family moved in?
Somebody gave them away. Yes.
Because they could have snitched.
Well, I don't know how they found out. That's why they went to hide out, just so that, because where they were living before, of course, people knew, and they attended synagogue.
Even where they moved into, even though it was a small place.
Yes, they found out whatever.
It was safe for a while.
Yes. So who knows? I think sometimes these people got money for turning people in. Sometimes through anger, somebody got into a fight and they would turn people in. Sometimes I think I heard they were picked up themselves, and in order to get themselves off for freedom, they would turn other Jews in, Of course, my mother never did tell where her family was, but some people did tell where their family members were. It was to save their lives, There were a lot of, the Germans were responsible for a lot of horrible things, and the worst thing is when family are told to turn in families where, that was uppermost. That's your duty, turn in Jews. They did this. They ruined the economy. They did this. They're responsible for this. All these lies, of course, against Jews. And of course, a lot of the French, there is a history of anti-Semitism in France as well as in most of Europe, wherever there's Catholic countries, a lot of anti-Semitism. Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, any of those countries, there's a history of anti-Semitism. And so in 1943, my parents were picked up, unfortunately, by the French police, who were made to do that. But so of course they were collaborating with the German government, Germany. And of course, the Germans were smart and didn't tell people, of course, the truth. And they said, well, we need you to work for Germany. Well, my mother was smart and figured, no, I don't think you need babies, So she didn't want to take us with them. And they insisted, but she says, you're not taking my children, and she was very feisty. So they let her, thank goodness, take us to somebody who worked for her, I think a cleaning lady, where this lady also knew my aunt and uncle, who were pretty well off. They had jewelry stores. So then she didn't want to go directly to her sister because she didn't want the Germans to know their address. But so that's how she got us away. And what happened there is we were with my aunt and uncle for a little while, but I guess my uncle owned a farm in Normandy, and on the farm was a young girl, and her parents lived in a small home nearby, a few miles away. And that's where we were for the duration of the war. For 2 years, we were, I was 16 months old, of course. When my mother, by a miracle, came out of concentration camp, we didn't know her. We didn't want to go with her, All we knew were this couple. But anyway, she got us to go with her with toys and this and that, that she put in a car, in a taxi or something like that. But in the meantime, when she was, they were taken, it was terrible, the train ride to Auschwitz. And what's ironic is
Do you remember what year it was?
1943.
43?
Yeah, I was 16 months old, so that would have been, is it May or June or something like that? I was born in February,
Okay.
so 4 months from that would have been June, I think. So, but before they were taken in the train to concentration camps, Jews were held in, it so happens, Drancy. That's a city just outside of Paris, the suburbs. It's spelled Drancy. And what's ironic is that's where my mother grew up, in Drancy. My grandparents had several homes there, and they had an antique store, and she knew it as her home. But there, the Germans had, and the French had turned that into holding area for, thousands of Jews. And from there, they were shipped to Auschwitz by train. And I know a lot about this because I've read a lot about this, and I know that the people who drove the trains were paid in liquor to induce them to do that, and they were paid extra and all that. So I think it's in that movie, Shoah, by a French filmmaker. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That was a
very good. Exactly, and that's the way it was. Exactly. My mother told me all about it. Anyway, and they had a very arduous, I don't know if it's 3 days to go to Poland from Paris. And it was, of course, as most people have heard, it was horrible, the conditions, where these were cattle cars, and of course they were many, many people crowded there, and there were children there. My mother, she talked to somebody, with children, and that woman said, "Oh, I'm so glad I have my children with me. Why didn't you take your children?" And she didn't know that once a mother came into Auschwitz with children, they would immediately be sent to the gas chamber because they knew a mother, even if they killed the children, the mother wouldn't work. She would be, of course, in mourning, and she wouldn't be able to work. So they just sent them to the gas chamber, straight there. When my parents went there, of course, they were separated. She was in Birkenau, where the women, for the women's camp. And she remembers Dr. Mengele trying to separate. And actually, there was one, I think it was like an ambulance. And they said, you can go in there or go this way. Well, she thought, oh, I'll go in right. And this one German officer said to her, no, you have more time till you croak. And he saved her life, because if she had gone in that ambulance, it would have gone straight to the gas chamber. So he says, you still have... She was born 1906, so she was 1943, was it 37 years old? Yeah, she was 37 years old, so she was still kind of young. So they figured they still could get work out of her, Now, my father was 13 years older, so I don't know, And he probably could have worked for the Germans because he was a dentist, but my mother says he would have refused because he had so much integrity that he just didn't like them, He would have refused to work for them. But anyway, so she worked real hard, and of course they didn't have much to eat, very thin soup and a piece of bread the whole day, and this and that. And in fact, she got a disease, typhus, and she almost died from that. Yeah, but she was very small, very petite, so she, survived. And then one of the commandants, Germans, he at one time he said that anybody who's only half Jewish, raise your hand. Well, apparently my mother said she heard that he had a friend who was half Jewish, and I don't know, he wanted to justify saving him or something like that, or her, I'm not sure. Anyway, so she raised her hand, even though that was a deliberate lie. She was totally Jewish on both sides, And in fact, somebody who she was with, they said, "We knew your parents. You are Jewish." Somebody. She says, "No, my father, out of love for my mother, But anyway, so they believed her. There again, because she had kind of light brown hair and blue eyes and very light skin. They believed her, and my mother told me. She says some people who did raise their hand were tortured to see if they were telling the truth, and they didn't torture her. She doesn't know why. And what they did is they sent her to another concentration camp, which was not a killing camp like Auschwitz-Birkenau. So that was Ravensbrück. And there she was in camp with Geneviève de Gaulle, who was the niece of General de Gaulle. And she was in camp there for her political beliefs. She wasn't Jewish, but because she was against the government, And anyway, so that was the extent for 2 years she was in both Auschwitz and Ravensbrück. And at one time in Ravensbrück, she told me that somebody had done something against. They were, I don't know what you worked against the thing. They were building something, so they were going to kill all of them. But finally, at the last minute, they decided not to kill them. So.
This was 1943.
Oh, well, no, this would have been probably 1944. And she says they punished the women, I think it was only women there, by having them get on their knees on the ground for hours at a time. And she remembers she wanted to take away, they were little stones, cailloux, I'm not sure, little stones, to make it, because she had very sensitive skin, very white skin. And somebody beat her because she did that, because she was trying to make it more comfortable. Anyway, they didn't kill them by a miracle. A lot of these things, it's just by a miracle that a lot of people didn't die, Anyway, so finally, they were, she was set free by, actually, it was the Red Cross. They had an exchange of prisoners. It wasn't the end of the war, but thank goodness, an exchange of prisoners. And what to me was terrible, my mother said, was that de Gaulle, in the first convoi, that means the first, group, he didn't want any Jews in there. He only wanted Gentiles. Political prisoners, whatever, not Jews. So I thought that was terrible, that, this general who was fighting against the Nazis, of course, the Free French, But anyway, then she managed to elude into, she sneaked into one of these things, And so she was set free, and they took them to Sweden. And she says the Swedish people were very good. They gave them, everything. And she lived with a family there, and they were wonderful people, And in fact, she gained weight. She'd never been overweight, but she was kind of overweight. After starving for 2 years or more, she was under the occupation for 3 years. You didn't have much food then, And So she was set free, and then she proceeded to come and pick us up in Normandy. And anyway, we didn't want to go with her, but she bribed us with toys and this and that. And I went to her and I said in French, "Bobo," that means hurt. I was bleeding or something. So she tore, I think, her blouse or her dress, and she wrapped it around my hurt, you know. And in fact, I was so sick, I almost died from vitamin deficiency. And I was limping when she picked us up, you know. And but I got well. We had lice, we had worms, because I would pick things up and on the beach, things, mollusks or something, to eat, because I must have been very hungry. And my sister was 2 years older, and she tried to take care of me. She says, "Simone, don't eat that." You know, but I would. I was hungry, you know. So I had worms, you know, and we had lice. But anyway, and then when we went, she took us to the doctor, and the doctor said, "Don't go back to Paris just yet. There's no food there." There wasn't any food, you know, right after the war, 1945.
Yeah.
So I was just 3 years old. So we stayed on the farm for, I'm not sure how long, probably, 6 months or something like that. And then finally, and I still remember that. I remember when they put me on this horse, and I was so excited. I still remember that. I remember also they had like a dinner where they served this pot roast, you know, big one, and they passed the dish around. And then they gave me some, and I said, I spoke very bad French. I said, "That ain't much." You know, I spoke very bad French because these people were not educated, you know. So then they teased me, and they put the whole plate in front of me of this whole big thing. I remember that.
Did you have a pretty good appetite?
Yes, yeah. Especially, I guess that I had not eaten that much, you know, before. And my poor sister, from what I understand, she was grieving for her parents. I mean, she remembered more. She was, 5 years old by that time. So she would try to sew, pretend to sew without thread, just a needle like this. And my sister, and she didn't eat. She was thinner than me, and she didn't have that much of an appetite. But she always grieved for when my mother came back. We went back, and she was able to go back in the big townhome there. But everything had been taken out, everything cleaned out. And she says, "Yeah, the Nazis got it." But I'm thinking maybe it was the concierge, the French, who took it too. You know, you never know. They even dug under the floor in the kitchen. They dug to see if they had hidden things. But my mother had been smart. She had been able, when she took us to France, she took a suitcase. So the French police said, "Well, what's that? What are you taking?" She says, "Oh, it's just for the children." Well, it was like birth certificates. It was my father's diploma. It was some jewelry. So she did find that that was taken to a friend's. Who was it? Rosenzweig was the name of somebody she knew, you know. So they hid it the whole time. Of course, they didn't know there was jewelry there. She hid it in cream, jars of cream. Yeah, she was pretty smart.
What did she?
She had some jewelry, and
she put it in cream.
Yeah, she put it in these jars of cream, and she put it in there so that nobody knew that was jewelry, you know, because she didn't trust anybody, you know. Anyway, but afterwards, she found that thing, and when she came back, she did go back to work at Air France, and they were good about it. They paid her like a soldier that she would have been in as a soldier. Yeah, they paid her for back, you know. But of course, it was hard for her to handle 2 little children, because she had to go to work, and she always expected my father to come back, even though she had been told by somebody, she had made inquiries in camp about her husband, and somebody says, no, he was taken to the gas chamber. So she started
That was at
crying.
Auschwitz.
Yes,
Yeah.
and she started crying and crying, and this horrible look of, it wasn't even German. A lot of times it was those people who worked for the German, who were also inmates, but they were made to be real horrible.
They were real collaborators.
Exactly.
Some of them were as bad as the
Oh yeah,
Nazis.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say the Polish
Yes.
Gentiles and all that, they were horrible, but they knew their life was at stake, so they did what they had to do, But still, you're right, they were worse a lot of times than the Germans. So this one just punched her in the nose because she was crying over her husband, that she found out her husband had been killed. So she said my mother was very brave. She says, merci in French, merci.
Right.
She didn't want to show that it hurt her. The other one made fun, merci, made fun. But that's it. She didn't touch her anymore. But that was horrible. But anyway, so after the war, she was able to go back to Air France, and they were good, Air France, too. In France, they provide child care for workers, they do very good. And but then eventually my aunt in the United States, in San Diego, my aunt and uncle, this was my father's sister. Of course, she knew that her little brother, he was the youngest of 5. My mother was the youngest of 5. So she wanted my mother to bring us to the United States. And of course, my mother was really very upset how the French had acted, collaborating with the Nazis. So she was very disillusioned with. She had been very patriotic before. She was born in France, even though her parents were from Romania and Austria. Actually, her mother was from Austria too. And it was such a horrible experience to have them turn against French people,
Right.
So, and I remember when they came, I must have been 1950 or something. They came to see us, and my aunt and uncle, and they had no children. So she just begged my mother to bring us, and then my mother decided to take her up on it. And so in 1951 is when we came on the big ship, Ile-de-France. I don't know if you've heard about Ile-de-France. And a big ship, beautiful cruise ship, And we came to the United States, first to New York, where we had relatives, we had cousins, and then we took the train to California. And I remember that. I felt so bad because my doll, she fell or something because of the train. I felt really bad,
Did you lose the doll? Did you lose the doll?
No.
Fell.
But I was no, I didn't. But it was the movement and all that. You have to remember we didn't have many toys. Not like my kids. I have children. I bought a lot of stuff for them and all that. And my mother didn't have much money, so we didn't have. I had only one doll, and I remember being so excited when. She wanted to, she had to sign up to come to the United States, so she had to go and fill out all these forms. Well, she left us at home there. And so that was in 1950. I was about 8 years old or something. And she brought back these colored pencils. Oh, we were so excited, really. It's, now kids have so much, but we were excited with just colored pencils, And one doll, that's all we had. But my aunt would send us chewing gum, Hershey bars, and that was exciting, from America. Anyway.
What about the extended family? Your mother's extended family in France?
None of them. None of them. She was one of 5. None of them were taken to concentration camp. They were good about hiding out. My uncle, who subsequently moved to Israel from Paris, my aunt and uncle, and their daughter, their daughter was named Denise. And anyway, he said that once somebody had told on him that he's Jewish, so they called him into the Gestapo. And he was able to fool them because he was a truck driver. He snowed his way out of that, Yeah. But my aunt and uncle, now my aunt, she had become Catholic before the war, so that's probably how they, And then she had two other brothers. And one subsequently moved to San Francisco, Bernard. And in fact, the other day, one of his grandchildren called us. And I'm going to get together. She lives in Sacramento. And she remembers Zalman was my mother's maiden name. And she knows about that. And she saw the Shoah, the videotape and all that. So she has contacted us. Before that, we did not have much contact. I did know my uncle in San Francisco. Not very much. We didn't get together very much. And then I had her young brother, Shao, who moved with his wife and daughter, Denise, to Israel. So we went to see them. I went to Israel in 1972 with my mother. So we stayed with them. So, and then I'm not that familiar with, of course, my father's family. They were scattered. One of his sisters was in Mexico. And I don't know if it's because of World War II, but anyway, Annie Kutza, I met her a few times. She had no children. And then he had a brother who was in France, and that's how come my mother met my father, because of the brother, who was a watchmaker. He had a watch shop. And then his sister was the one in San Diego, and we lived with them for a year. And throughout our time growing up, my aunt helped us financially too. My mother did go to work. She could not get a secretarial job, so she went to work for make company as a saleswoman.
Good.
That's the only work she could get because she was over 50 by that time, and there was a lot of age discrimination, Even now there is. But anyway, so she worked, yes. But she always had nightmares about her experiences, so she went to a doctor, and he said, that was before she got a job, he says, go to work, keep yourself busy, because all her experiences, seeing children shot, all these horrible things that she saw.
That she witnessed.
Yeah, she witnessed, exactly. And her husband, who they had only been married, 4 years when he was killed. 4 years they were only married, And she never remarried. That was it,
So were they separated during one of the selections? Is that?
Yes. They would send the men one way and the women.
Yes.
She doesn't. She tried to. Yeah, I don't think.
But you remember Dr. Mengele?
Yes.
Did he have white gloves? I heard that he. A lot of people say that he
really?
wore white gloves
I don't know.
while he was pointing this way
Really?
or this way.
Yeah, he wasn't a real medical doctor. He was, I think, an anthropologist. I heard.
Well, he did a lot of experimenting with twins.
Oh, he did.
Stuff.
He did with twins, especially without anesthesia. Oh, yeah, that's very cruel person. Yeah, and all his people, So.
I remember one story about him that he took very good care of this one woman that was pregnant to make sure that her baby was going to be born and be healthy. And after she was, after he made her healthy and took real good care of her, just shortly after that, he sent her right to the gas chamber with the newborn.
Wow. I'm surprised, though, he kept the newborn, because a lot of times if a woman was pregnant, they would just kill the children, They would just kill the children.
They saw kids being thrown right out of the window.
Yes.
babies.
Yeah, in fact, my mother told me about how they would they would have these little children play like Ring Around the Rosie, and then they had dug a pit in there, and then afterwards they would just shoot the children to drop into the pit. And these kids were playing, little kids, and they didn't know what awaited them. So very cruel people, that's true. So so my mother worked, and then I went to college. I went to UCLA, and I became a social worker. And I worked for 35 years as a social worker in Orange County. Yes. So, so that's kind of nice. And my sister also, she had a nursery school with her husband. He was an engineer. And
did you have two sisters?
No, one sister. Yeah. And she's 2 years older than me. Then I have two children, and they're 29 and 32 now.
What are they doing?
Well, they're both, believe it or not, actors. My daughter graduated from UCLA and majored in sociology. Then she announced to me, "Mom, I want to be an actress." Well, I didn't think that much of it. But, what can you do, right? So.
How'd that work out, all right?
Not with the acting. She writes off the internet. She's a good writer, so she makes money that way. My son, he's written several scripts, and he's made several pictures. In fact, one was entered into different film festivals, and I went with him to New York, San Francisco, to Los Angeles, and Riverside. So one of his films, yeah. But, it's not easy. So what he does now, he works for a restaurant in Beverly Hills now, So, but they both still hope to, she wants to be an actress. She's also done modeling, and she's tall. She's 5'8.5", And
like Dottie, you're about 5'8".
Yes. Exactly. She's her. Yeah, and she's thin, like a little like her. So she's done fit modeling and this and that. My daughter, but she writes for the internet a lot too. And she does video. Yeah, she's very bright. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've told her a few things. I haven't talked that much about. The Holocaust and all that, but it's had the effect where now she won't believe the government. She'll say, "Don't trust them. Look what happened with you." And because, as you may know, at one point they ordered, the French ordered the Jews to go and register at the police stations. Well, this was a big decision for people to have to make. So my father said, he wanted to follow the law because they were under, threat of being shot if they didn't do it. And my mother, her initial thinking was, no, we shouldn't do it. But because he did, she felt she went along with him. But in retrospect, that was it. They had a list of all the Jews, that's what. So and I told my daughter that, so she doesn't trust. She says, "Look what happened," and this and that.
I can understand that.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, that's right.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, so.
Are you a working girl now?
Oh no. I was a teacher after I retired in 2002. I became a substitute teacher for like 6 years. So I like that. Because when I was a social worker, I, worked in different programs, and then I liked little children, so I worked as a teacher. I had registered my daughter in central casting, like to be an extra, because I read an article in the paper. And I thought, well, that would be kind of nice, and I registered myself. Well, that's what I did when I retired. I did that, too, for about 6 years, worked in background for movies and TV and commercials. So that was fun, I did that. But now I go to where also Dottie goes, Ollie at Cal State Fullerton, where there's a program for retired people, and we listen to lectures, we take language classes. It's really nice. They have dancing.
Yeah.
So we keep busy that way.
Did you want to show the pictures of
Oh, yes.
your,
Yeah, this was my father here.
Let's see if I could get it. Yeah, hold it a little lower.
Okay.
Not that. Let's see.
Yeah, this was my father.
Okay, that's your dad.
Yeah.
I got him.
And, you know, he was so excited because he was 13 years older than my mother. So when we were born to have children at that age, he was so excited, you know. So, but he, you know, that's so sad that he never came back. My mother always was positive, thinking he would, but he didn't, you know. So, but, you know, he's one of many millions who were, you know, what gets me is it wasn't because of politics. They were not against the government, the German government, the French government. They didn't demonstrate or anything like that, but it's because of who they were, you know, who they were. So,
one of your mom?
Oh, yes. In fact, I'll tell you about my father. He was so honest, and he really stood up for things. When the French came to arrest, he says, "What's under that hat? Is that a French head or a German head?" He made them, I don't know if they felt guilty, but that's what, And this is my mother. She was at Air France.
Trying to get it close up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep. You don't have to move it. I got it. So tell me a little bit about her.
Yeah, she was.
About this picture. How old would she have been?
I think she was when she started Air France. Maybe she was 20 or something like that. And like I say, she saw Lindbergh land in Paris at Air France. She went with these pilots. She was very brave. She went with them when they tried out these planes. You know, they couldn't believe a young woman would do that, but she was very fearless, you know. And that probably helped her during being in concentration camp, you know.
Very good looking lady.
Thank you. Yeah. And
so how old was she when she died?
She was 95. She lived,
95.
Yeah. She was always cheerful, I'll tell you. When everybody knew her, like when she was a saleswoman, always with a smile. She worked at Robinson's, you know, and she always had a smile. And, yeah, she was a good mother. She didn't remarry. She always stayed with us. She never went out, you know. And she was a very good mother, very good mother. And she had a number tattooed, of course, on her arm. And at one time, she was working for Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Hollywood. We lived. That's her first job that she was able to get at a cafeteria, you know. And this one doctor, he teased her. He says, "Is that your phone number?" He kept teasing her. Finally, she says, "You want to get it off?" And you know what? He was a plastic surgeon. He took it off free of. Yeah, he was take it off.
Yeah,
because some people accused her of blackmailing people to try to get their sympathy by having a number, you know. Yeah. I remember she used to try to hide it with a big bracelet and this and that, you know, poor thing. As though, you know, it's something to be ashamed of. It's not her who did anything horrible. It's the other people.
What part of her arm did she have a tattoo on?
I think it was here. Like here.
I think most of them had it like inside.
Maybe it was here. Yeah. But, I remember that, yeah. But, so she was happy to have freedom in this country. She loved the United States, you know. And so I came when I was 9 years old, and I didn't know a word of English, not one word. I didn't even know hi. These kids would say hi. I didn't know what they were saying.
Did you speak any other language other than French?
No. My mother knew Yiddish, but she didn't teach it to us. She was afraid that we would have an accent or whatever. So we only knew French. And, you know, we learned it fast. When they're...
You learn it quicker
and you don't have to rely on your language being spoken at school. We had to, you know. So, I was 9 years old, and it was exciting. Yeah. We lived with my aunt and uncle, and they were very good to us. My aunt, of course, she always mourned her brother, you know, her little brother who was killed, you know. So
she experienced some of those elections, though.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Like I say, it's the German soldier who saved her. Because if she had gone in that truck, she would have been sent to the gas chamber.
Close call. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Simone, I want to thank you so much for your testimony.
Oh, you're welcome, Robert. You're welcome. Thank you for doing this.